So welcome everyone to the 102 stream. So today we've got Joanne Lockwood of See Change Happen, and her session is Your Journey to Conscious Inclusion. So again, this is a really interesting subject, looking at tackling conscious bias within organizations, which is prevalent everywhere, I feel. So without further ado, I'll hand over to Joanne, and she'll introduce herself and give her a presentation. So thanks.
Well, hello, and thank you so much for tuning into the session held by GS UK. So my name is Joanne Lockwood. Let me just put my slides up so you can see my slides over the shoulder here. So this is me. I am the inclusive culture expert with See Change Happen. And you also see in the corner there, we've got a QR code, which I'll be pointing to at the end to make sure you get some feedback for this session. So this is about conscious inclusion. And let me start off with a challenging phrase. If you're not consciously inclusive, you are inadvertently being unconsciously excluding. So if you're not thinking about people, there's a chance you may well be inadvertently excluding them. So that's what I'm going to be talking about here, is how can we be more conscious about our inclusion efforts to make sure that the people we're thinking of includes everybody, not just through our own blinkers. So that's the mission for this session, okay? So my first challenge to you is, what's your why? Why does it matter? Why does it matter? D&I, diversity and inclusion. What's your why of D&I? Because it has to matter to you as a person, as an individual, not just to your organization. Because if you don't understand why, then will it stick? Is it important? It's very easy to say, well, we want to hire more women, more people of color, got to respect neurodiversity, because it seems trendy. And you see, where we are now in 2025, we're seeing a lot of pushback on this woke agenda, where D&I is being tarnished with this brush of being allowing second-rate hiring, second-rate inclusion. So the myth has to be busted. We have to understand the why. Why does it matter? So let me challenge you that with you as we go through this, okay? So I'm a great believer in the ancient Greek philosophy. I think it was Aristotle, and he had three pillars. And let me talk you through these three pillars. First one being ethos. The ethos is the ethical response. So I would think about that as compliance. It's the law, the Equality Act. It's the company policies. It's the rules of engagement that we have to follow. And I know that many people are really, really keen on compliance and getting things right legally and policy-wise, and that people love their rule set. So that's kind of the rule set that we have to follow. We also have logos, and logos is the logical response. So we think of that as a business case. The people who love their spreadsheet, they want to see things justified. They want to see the return on investment. They want to make sure that what we're doing here matters and is profitable. And that's important. That's very important. What I like to talk mainly about here is the pathos. So pathos is the emotional response, the human factor. So I'm a great believer that if we focus on our people, we get it right for our people. And our people trust us, our people care about us, and we're looking after them. Then the business case, the logos, the spreadsheet will balance. We become more profitable. We'll retain our people better. And if that works, then we'll be compliant. So I'm a great believer in culture, vision, and values-led organizations as a priority. And then diversity and inclusion and belonging should follow. So people first. And that's the focus I'm going to talk to you about today. So the ROI, and in this case, when I say ROI, I mean return on inclusion. And for me, that is positive people experiences. So whether it's diversity, equity, inclusion, equality, belonging, justice, all these buzzwords you may hear in this environment, which can be confusing, awkward, so much terminology. The output we're looking for is a positive experience. So that's a positive experience for you, engaging with me today here, a positive experience, me engaging with you your company, your organization, your brand, your values. Whether I'm a candidate in the hiring process, I want to know that I can trust you to give me a fair crack. If I'm going to put the effort into applying to your organization, I have to believe that I stand a fair chance for who I am, my skills, my attributes. And then as an employee, I want to know that I will be respected, both as an individual and part of the team. Maybe I'm a customer. I want to know that my customer experience matters to you as well, that you represent me, your products represent me, your ethics, your values align with my own. And also, we think about it as a stakeholder. Maybe you're a supplier, third-party supplier, maybe you're a shareholder, maybe you're an investor, whatever it may be. We think of their needs as well, and in the wider community. So, as I say, what we're trying to look for here is a positive experience in how I deal with you and how I deal with the organization. So if we start with the end in mind, all good projects have an end goal, what we're trying to achieve here. If we start with this positive experience as being an end goal, then when we start the project, when we start our engagement, when we start our conversation, we're working towards that goal. Then we're likely to have a positive outcome for all concerned. Yeah, is that fair? That's the premise we're trying to work on here today. So I need you to open your mind. I need you to move from your comfort zone where you do it automatically, jump over the fear zone, because sometimes when things are different, we have anxiety, we go, oh, hang on a minute, that doesn't work, I'm not sure about that. We've got to get into our learning zone, which is where the growth happens in our mind, and then we're in our growth zone. And as the buzzword says, nothing ever grows in the comfort zone. Things only grow in the growth zone. So that's where we need to water and nurture ourselves. So please pop into the chat. If you're watching this on catch up, please make a note. Why does it matter? So think about that. Think about your why. Think about why it matters. And if necessary, just pause the video for a second and have a think. Yeah, why does it matter to me? Because that's when the magic starts happening. That's where we get into that growth. Okay. I also want you to think about this, about your own personal responsibilities. And let's talk about intent, impact, and accountability, just to frame this. So we all have great intent. I'm a great believer that humankind have positive intent. We want to do the right thing. Nobody wakes up in the morning and thinks, I want to be a really evil, nasty person today. I want to make sure that everybody who comes in contact with me feels really upset by being near me. That doesn't happen. We don't do that. We have our belief system. We have who we are, our own core values. So we believe that what we're doing in our interactions is positive. But on the other side of that is impact. That's how people perceive our thoughts, our words, and our deeds. That's how it lands. So despite our best intent, we can cause a problematic or negative impact on somebody. Again, we probably didn't have our positive people experiences end goal here. We weren't trying to create success. So we have to recognize that. And that's where accountability comes in. So we're not always going to get it right first time. We're not going to succeed every time. But accountability means we take ownership. We understand that our plan A doesn't always work. So what we might have to do is resort to our plan B, C, D, E, F, G, all the way through to Z if we have to. Because we have to start interacting and understanding that impact. So if I know I've upset you, if I know I haven't delivered a service for you, if I know I haven't thought about you, I can then think, actually, what can I do differently now and next time? So I can change my processes. Because I've taken that experience, I've learned that it didn't work for you. So I now need to bank that learning and make change. Because if we keep persisting on insisting that we're right and you're wrong, or I'm not listening to your needs, I'm not being consciously inclusive. I'm not spending time taking your thoughts and your needs on board. So intent, impact, and accountability. Let me give you a quick analogy just so you can lock onto that. So if you think about murder and manslaughter, the intent with murder is to kill, to harm. The intent with manslaughter is not. It's an accident. It's something that happened as a byproduct of something else. What's the impact? The impact in both of those situations is the same. a person loses their life. A family is without a loved one. Someone's potential has been cut short. So when we think about the judiciary, intent is strongly considered, but also impact. We cannot mitigate intent through well intentions or a mistake. We have to take personal responsibility and accountability. So I'm asking you now to think about how you could be accountable for your intent when it has a negative impact. Okay, that's all I'm asking. Right. So we know that one of the key components of positive mental health is avoiding bullying, discrimination, or exclusion. So what we need to do here is be really focused on the impact we're having on people could negatively have on their mental health. So we have to work on our systems, our processes, our positive experiences, so that we're minimizing or eradicating bullying, discrimination, and exclusion. Okay, so that's a why, if you like. I don't know if any of you, if you've studied some philosophical or management styles. So we need to talk about this hygiene before motivation. And this comes from Hertzberg's two-factor or Hertzberg's motivational theory. And what Hertzberg says in his theory is performance equals motivation times ability times the environment. We can train ability. We can make sure that people have the ability. We can select on ability. But what happens often is we spend a lot of time as organizations focusing on motivation. Pizzas on Friday, beanbags, pay rises, bonuses, away days, rah, rah, yay stuff, the motivational side. I'm not saying it isn't important. What we forget, though, is that the hygiene, the environment, is a detractor. You cannot overcome the detraction with motivation. People have to be in a place of neutrality, not experiencing negativity before you can motivate. Think of yourself in the environment. If you're feeling uncomfortable, you're feeling talked over, you're feeling you have no purpose, if you're a person of color and you've experienced racism, you're a gay person, you experience homophobia, the down talk, the uncomfortableness, your neurodiversity isn't respected, the environment is just too noisy. All of that, no matter how much fun the company is, how much reward I get, I'm always going to be negative because of those detractors. So we have to recognize here that get EDI, DNI, positive experiences, it's about creating the environment where I feel safe. It's not toxic. So again, when we're being conscious about this conscious inclusion, we have to think, well, I'm okay, but who isn't? Who aren't we thinking about? Who isn't being considered? Okay. So that dovetails into another theory, Maslow's hierarchy. And if you remember the triangle, I put it in front of you, the pyramid, the bottom two layers are this hygiene layer, physiological needs, safety needs, food, water, warmth, rest, security, safety. If I'm not having these basic needs met, how will I ever experience belongingness? How will I ever feel that self-esteem? How will I ever self-actuate in order to become very productive, discretionary effort, motivated in the organization, my care, my quality? How am I going to experience any of that if we're just focusing on the belongingness without making sure the basics are right? So often when we're interacting with people, we need to understand where they're at in their own hierarchy. How are they feeling? What's going on in their life? What needs do they have? We'll talk about equity in a minute, but that's kind of what we've got to do. Is we've got to put systems and processes and thinking in place to make sure we're considering people's physiological and safety needs to create the environment that is not detracting from their experience in the organization or from dealing with you as an individual. Yeah. I'm sure you've been around in the world of work for many, many years. So maybe think about opportunities or times in your career where these haven't been met. How does that make you feel? Or if you haven't experienced that, maybe you work with somebody else. Maybe you have a wife, partner, husband, parent, child that has experienced this. So just maybe reflect on that for a second. Okay, so conscious inclusion, who aren't we thinking of? That's the mission, if you like, of this this presentation. So let me give you another visual for this. So this is a a thermos soup flask. I'm sure many of you have seen them in the shops, and they're very clever. They've got a lid with a spoon in it. I get up in the morning, I warm my soup up in the microwave, pour it in here, and then I park up or get my lunchbox out, when I'm at work, and I go to eat my soup. And the very first time I did this, I thought it was very clever until I went to use it. So I'm struggling here to get the spoon out. So bear with. Let me just. There we go. Got the spoon up. Right. So what I realised was that this soup flask or this product was designed by a right-handed person. Because I'm a left-hander, so I know this. I know it's designed by a right-handed person. I know that the product development team were right-handed. The marketing team, the people, everybody who signed this product off must have been right-handed. So how do I know that? Well, this spoon, cleverly designed, it folds up, it sits in the lid. When you're left-handed, that spoon bends because the locking mechanism is on the other side. So if I'm right-handed, it locks. If I'm left-handed, it bends. So this product, despite Thermos's best endeavors, doesn't work for 10% of the population. So they weren't consciously thinking of people who are different-handed. And that's a very simple thing when we're designing solutions. And if you are left-handed watching this, maybe you've been to lecture theatres, maybe you've been to those ones where the tables have the little flap so you can write on them. They're always on the wrong side. Every book you pick up, the spine is on the wrong side. You have to turn it upside down and write at the back of it. So left-handed people are the forgotten class, if you like, of often being excluded because we've been brought up in a right-handed world. So something that simple, and we can think about extrapolate all of the other characteristics and all the other differences in people. We're not thinking about 10% of the population who are left-handed. Who else aren't we considering? Okay. So remember the soup flask, remember the spoon. So let's talk about the Frida principles. And Frida stands for fairness, respect, equity, dignity, and autonomy. So these are the fundamental pillars, if you like, that underpin the Equality Act, human rights legislation in the UK and around the world. I think of these, I have an IT background, funny enough. I'm here today at an IT conference. And I think of this as a subroutine in my head. So every time I'm interacting, my objective, positive people experiences, when I'm interacting with people, I'm always testing myself. Am I being fair? Am I respecting that human being, their pronouns, their identity, their ethnicity, their faith? Am I talking to them in a way that they resonate with, intent, impact, accountability? Am I giving them equity? Have I made sure that if they're neurodiverse, I've created an environment for them? If they're left-handed, I've given them a spoon that they can use. Dignity. I'm not putting them in a position where they feel threatened, unsafe. And autonomy, they can bring their whole self to work. Am I doing this? And some of this has to happen in a microsecond in the conversation. But again, if you train yourself, even if you just say, am I being fair? Have I considered the needs of that other person adequately? What haven't I considered? So again, if we think about these principles in our head as a subroutine, and make sure we put a call into that subroutine every time we start speaking, every time we start listening, every time we start interacting with somebody, then we're going to catch it. Because the conscious inclusion is all about catching those unconscious thoughts we have because we're not thinking. So consciously run yourself through the subroutine every time you interact and test. How's that? Yeah. Okay, so people often ask me what the difference between equity and equality is. Let me just talk about equity. So equality is treating everybody the same, giving everybody, if everybody wants a pound each, you give everyone a pound without checking whether some people need the pound and others actually need 10 pounds. So in this particular example here, if we think about a running circuit, equality is putting everybody on the start line together without taking into consideration the distance some people have to run. So we look at this picture on the screen, people on the outside have to run a lot further to get around the track. So if we just start everyone the same, clearly they've got the same, but it's not fair. Equity is recognizing we treat everyone fairly, and therefore we have to offset. So the yellow runner on the outside of the track needs to start further ahead to ensure their race is the same length as the blue person's race. Otherwise, they're racing longer. And we think about someone maybe who has a different background. Their race is often further because they have had less advantages, their education system, their family, their networking, whatever it may be. So we need to build equity in the system for people, their neurodiversity, their dyslexia, whatever it may be. We need to amplify them so that their needs are met. And we need to be that conscious inclusion again. We need to think about what support do I need to provide? So equity is really important. Then we have this continuum of inclusion. So let's talk about this. Right at the outside, there's exclusion. You're not welcome. You're an outsider. You have little value. Don't need you. You don't fit. Whatever it may be. Your CV is not good enough. That's fine. So exclusion is there's no place for you. Okay. Then from exclusion, we move on to tolerance. And tolerance is, I don't think it's a great place to be. I don't want to be tolerated. I'm included, but I'm not welcomed. I'm different. It's like oh, really? It's like, oh, it just feels kind of yucky for both people. You don't want me here. I don't really want to be here, but you're tolerating me. Don't like your views, don't like who you are. So what we want to try and do is move on to acceptance. Acceptance. I start to value you for who you are, your knowledge, your contribution, your insight, whatever skills you have. But you're still evaluating, am I good enough? Yeah, you're right. What I want to do, I want to be in this zone. I want to be in the green zone, in the embrace zone. I want you to celebrate me. Yay, Joanne, you're amazing. You're fantastic. You're great at what you do. Oh, Joanne, come onto my team. It's fun. Yeah, you're most welcome. And I often think this back to PE lessons at school. Do you remember PE at school? I've just turned 60, so school for me was 50 odd years ago. But I still remember those PE lessons when you used two team captains. Do you remember that? You're playing football, basketball, netball, whatever it was in the day. And the two team captains are picking their team, aren't they? First of all, they pick their friends, their mates, their colleagues, their besties. Yeah, you're good. Come on my team. And you're fighting, arguing over the best players. And oh yeah, come on mine. And then you get down to the middle pack, don't you? You go, oh yeah, I suppose, yeah, you're okay. Maybe a bit of this, bit of that. And eventually you get down to the last two or three, don't you? Go, oh, miss, don't like any of these people. Oh, come on, get in. Yeah, oh, you'll do. And then last, it's just one child left. And you go, oh, miss, they're useless. We don't want them on our team. Oh, go on then, get in goal, don't mess up. And that's how we tend to treat people. We embrace certain people, we accept others, we tolerate. And then we get to this point where we really don't want to engage. Do you make people feel that way? When you're picking your teams, when you're working with your teams, are there people in your team that you embrace and celebrate? Are there people that you tolerate and barely accept? Do you have any say in that? Have you been in that position where you've been in the yellow or red boxes? Because I know that I would rather be excluded than tolerated. Don't bring me in. Don't welcome me, but put up with me. If you don't like me, just tell me. Just tell me, nah. And I'll go, fine, I'm out. Don't worry about it. But don't kid me. You either accept and embrace me or I walk away. So if you're feeling in that position, you're not engaging. We go back to Maslow, we go back to Hertzberg. We think about that hygiene level. If I'm in the yellow and red box here, my hygiene level, I'm in the detraction zone. I've got low psychological safety and physiological safety, low safety needs. I'm not going to self-actuate. I'm not going to get belongingness. So we've got to think about how we move people into this. Be really, really mindful of this. Okay. So what part of this is cultural intelligence? And I describe cultural intelligence as almost like a competency in existing and interacting in diverse situations. So what does that look like? What does that look like? Well, there's four tenets, four competencies in cultural intelligence. So let's just visit those. So the first one is CQ. So CQ is cultural intelligence. It's CQ drive. That's your own interest in finding out more. Are you bothered? Do you care? Do you want to find out more? Do you want to learn? Because if you don't, you haven't got, go back to what's your why? You want to learn. You know why you want to learn. So CQ drive is your desire to be more competent. Okay. If you haven't got that, we don't need to move on. So what I want you to do is think about how do you get that drive? to find out why it matters. And of course, then knowledge. And knowledge is relatively easy these days. YouTube, Wikipedia, ChatGPT. There's systems out there. We've got a phone in our pocket. We can Google things. We can Bing things. We can search for stuff. So knowledge seeking is easy. But the problem is with knowledge is that we don't have a strategy. We learn things, we acquire knowledge, but we don't always have a strategy. So what I need you to do is think about how you can develop a strategy to apply the knowledge you've learned with that drive. Because the old phrase, a little knowledge is dangerous, and that can be the case. You've got ideas, but you don't know how to apply. You don't know about different situations. You know on paper what it means. You understand what racism is by definition, but unless you understand what racism is by experience, you can never have that true empathy. So thinking about how we develop that strategy by listening and engaging with people through diverse experiences. And then action, once you've got the drive, you've got the knowledge, you've got the strategy, then you can take the keys to the car, you can go for a drive. Because then you're competent with your intent, your impact, and your accountability, and your end goal, which is positive people experiences. So by layering these things on, you start to become consciously aware of your needs and your responsibilities to create positive environments for people. Yeah. So let's talk about how you, as a leader, and you think, well, I'm not a leader. I'm a this, I'm a that, I'm the other. But we are all leaders. We all have to lead ourselves. Leadership is about social influence, and leadership starts with I. We have to be competent leaders in ourselves and ensure we take responsibility for our own style and our own ways of working before we lead a team. So let's talk about some of these. So let's talk about the 6 C's of inclusive leadership. And this is a Deloitte model, which you can do some more research on. Go back to the drive. Do you care enough? Go and Google it. Go and find out more, get the knowledge, and build that strategy so you can then deploy it. So let's talk about this. So one of the first competencies of inclusive leadership is cognizance of bias. We all have biases. We can't get rid of them. All we can hope to do is mitigate, because our lived experience, our tribe, our affinity groups, the people we hang out with, all shape our political views, our community views of the world. So we need to make sure that we're aware of our biases and we're aware that when they're going to be triggered so that we can start to manage them and mitigate them, but recognize we can't get rid of them. All we do is put processes in place. So be aware of our biases. The first step. We then have to have curiosity about people, about situations, going back to that drive in the cultural intelligence, going back to that conscious inclusion. I need to have drive. I need to be curious to change the world for the better, to create better experiences for people. I have to be conscious about this. I need my cultural intelligence, I've just mentioned, that drive, knowledge, strategy, take action. I need to be aware. I need to collaborate with people. I'm not an island. I don't know everything. We have to be collaborators in life as an individual and also as a leader. We have to look out for new solutions. Ideas come through diversity. Otherwise, we're locked into our own blinkers. So collaborate with your team, with your peers, with your leaders, and also network outside of organizations. And that's what you're doing today at this conference and other conferences. You're collaborating with other thought leaders to learn and expand your repertoire and knowledge. But we need commitment. Whether that's an EDI goal for the organization, whether that's your own core values, you'll come up with friction. You're not going to agree with everybody. We'll talk a bit about that in a minute. You're not going to agree with everybody. So you've got to have commitment to the ideals that which you stand for and the organization, because you will be judged by others on how you meet those commitments and whether you can be trusted. And then finally, it's having the courage to hold on to that commitment, courage to do the right thing. You can have challenging conversations. Not everyone's going to agree with you. Not everyone's going to believe in what you're saying. So if you believe you're right, not to the point of being obsessed, but if you believe you're right in the mission of the organization and you're following that, you will have to have the courage to hold the rope, to be that ally, to be that person who stands up to make sure that people are being included and being thought about. Yeah. So think about those sort of 6 categories there, the 6 C's, and maybe just think about your own self. Where do you struggle? Where do you struggle with? Is it understanding? Is it Is it your own biases kick in? Are you not don't have a high level of cultural intelligence, or is it really hard to have that courage and commitment? Think about where you need to develop, expand. But one of the biggest barriers to inclusion is the fear of getting it wrong, because we don't have that cultural intelligence, because we don't have that confidence, we don't have the courage, we don't have the commitment. We're worried about saying or doing the wrong thing, our impact being negative, despite our best intent. We're going to get called out. We're going to get people are going to tell me that I'm wrong, or whatever it may be. So we're worried about getting it wrong. So let's talk a bit about that. So the first side here is building psychological safety and trust. Go back to Maslow and Herzberg. We need to think about psychological safety. So we need to build environments where there's inclusion safety. People are accepted and valued for who they are, moving through that continuum of inclusion so that people feel embraced and accepted. I can bring my whole self to work. So we've got learner safety. I need to know that I can grow and develop in the organization with my team around me. Because if I can't trust you, to allow me to make mistakes in a safe environment without being vilified or victimized, how am I going to want to take part? No child learns to walk without falling over and grazing its knee. So we have to put carpets and cushions and sofas so that when they fall over and bang their head, they're not impacted. They may cry, they may get shocked, but they're going to pick themselves up and learn some more. So we need to create environments where our people can learn with cushions and sofas and carpets, make their mistakes, grow and learn. We never learn by getting it right first time. We only learn through mistakes. I then need to learn that I can contribute, I can speak up, I can tell you my thoughts. If I can't do that, why do I bother? Why do I come here? If you're not interested in me, don't want to listen to me, I'm not going to be valued. And finally, challenger. I need to be able to call it out and say, no, that's not right. Or actually, let me educate you. I need to whistleblow. I need to challenge discrimination. I need to be able to challenge victimization. I need to challenge unfairness. And I need to be listened to. I need to know that you're going to listen to me, because that's part of psychological safety. I have to trust you that you're going to look after me and not break me. Yeah. Okay. So emotional intelligence, almost linked to cultural intelligence. The other things I've been telling you, we need to think about how we communicate. So again, 4 tenets, four areas: self-awareness. I know who I am. I know how I react. I know my stress levels. I know how I get it wrong sometimes. I can then self-manage, self-regulate, not to be inauthentic or fake, but to be recognizing that I function differently depending on my emotional state. Once I've got that awareness of who I am, how I operate, I can now be socially aware. I can watch the emotional cues. I can look at body language, eye contact. I can see when somebody else is struggling. Again, that impact and accountability. Have I been negative? Am I thinking about the positive experience they're having? So making sure I'm aware, my radar is open, I'm looking, thinking. And of course, from there, we'll build stronger relationships. We'll manage conflict. We'll be more interested in people. People will start to trust us. They'll feel psychologically safe because we put the effort in, we've done the work. Yeah. But it's important. I talked about biases earlier. We have to recognize that we all have perspectives. And what I wanted to get across to you is that you don't need to be right. In fact, life is much happier when you don't have to be right all the time. And who says you are right or who says you're wrong? This is not a zero-sum game. We don't want someone to have to be right and someone to have to be wrong. Open our eyes and hearts and ears to the fact that other people have different thoughts and that their thoughts may be different to ours because of our own perspectives. So we've got our lived experiences, we've got our fears, things we're scared about, we've got our tribe, the people we hang out with, we've got our socialization, we've got our faith, our beliefs, our rule set, the media is telling us stuff all the time, our government, our political views. All of this stuff is part of who we are and what's important to us. So these are where our biases and blind spots come from. And our perspectives are shaped by all these things. So we get all this stuff bombarding us. We get all this sensory perception, all this information, this news. It's chucking stuff out. It's 11 million pieces of information a second. But we can only take on board so much, 20, 30, 40, 50 pieces, because we have these filters that our biases, our selective attention, our brains are busy doing other stuff. So we optimize our thinking down to these minutiae. And that's where our biases, our stereotypes kick in and how we make our decisions. So if you think about this equation here, E plus R equals O. And don't worry, it's not mathematics. We're not doing any programming here. E is an encounter. We bump into something. Something occurs, something happens. Of course, we react. Positively, negatively, confused, whatever it may be. And however we react leads to an outcome. Something happens, we react, there's an outcome, even if it's indecision. But what we have to recognize here is that plus in the equation is our perspective. How I perceive that encounter, that need, dictates how I will react, therefore will lead to my outcome. So we think about it, this happens to be local council election day in the UK for many parts of the country. When we go into our polling booth with our little pencil and our bit of paper, we don't all tick the same box. We don't vote for the same people. Why not? Because we have a different perspective on who is the best candidate. Doesn't mean say I'm right, doesn't mean say you're wrong. But as a society, we accept that it's a majority decision. So the majority perspective tends to win, which leads to the outcome. But it doesn't mean you're wrong. It doesn't mean you're right. It just means you have that perspective and other people share it. So I encourage you to think about perspectives and debate those through why questions. Why does it matter? Why do you want that? Or why do you think that? Rather than arguing about who won. Discuss why something, not, okay? Not the outcome. Makes a much easier life to have conversations, to have challenging conversations when you're focusing on that perspective and not being right and wrong. So giving another example here, person on the left, mini me, thinks it's black. Person on the right, mini me again, thinks it's white. Of course, where they are, that's all they can see. But we step back, we can see both sides of this. That's why diversity of thinking, more voices is important because we'll see more. And it's not until we rotate or shift our perspective that we can start to see other people's opinions, which is why it's really, really important not to be wedded and stuck on our belief system. So Paul Sappho, our forecaster, talked about this Strong Opinions Weekly, how we get so invested in our opinions. We get so caught up in this that we're not prepared to be wrong. So start by challenging yourself. Avoid that confirmation bias. Start believing you could be wrong. And then investigate other solutions. Scientists spend entire careers trying to prove and disprove theories. They want to be challenged on their belief system, on their theories. We should all adopt that critical thinking. Get back into that. I started off going from the comfort zone, growth zone, all the way over there. We don't have to be right. So belongingness is where the magic happens. So I'm going to leave you to a quick thought here, how to measure belonging, okay? So how do we know if people feel belonging? And I'd like you, as I'm going through this, to think of this yourself. And this comes from a great book by Marcus Buckingham and Ashley Goodall called The 9 Lies About Work. And here's eight, however many that is, tests of belonging. So as I say, I'll go through them. I just want you to think about them yourself. And then we'll go to the close and I'll give you a QR code so that you can give your feedback for this session. Is that okay? All right, first one. I'm really enthusiastic about the mission of my company. Do you believe in the purpose, passion and purpose, the vision of your organization? Do you? How much? At work, you clearly understand what's expected of you. Do you? You know when you win, when you lose, what you've got to do. You come in the morning, expectations are clear. Do you? Scale of 1 to 10? 10 or 5? Okay. In your team, you're surrounded by people who share your values. Honesty, integrity, whatever they may be, hard work, commitment, customer service, however you describe your values. Do people around you resonate and echo those? Or are you working with people you feel, yeah, you're not a me person? Again, 0, 5, 10, what do you think? You have the chance to use your strengths at work. You're doing a role that challenges you, that plays on what you're good at, what you like doing. It's not monotonous. It's not mundane. It's not too difficult. It's not too hard, too easy, whatever it may be. You come to work going, great. I did a great thing today. I'm really proud of that. Do you? Again, 0, 5, 10. What do you think? Where are you on that? Teammates have my back. They're not down talking you. You go away for 2 weeks holiday, you come back and people have cleared your desk. You're not being criticized behind your back. Your manager's not throwing you under the bus every time you make a mistake. You feel that you're working in an environment where you feel part of that team and everyone's got who you are. Yeah. Does that happen? Oh no, I'll be recognized for excellent work. And this is not employee of the month trophy like this. It's just someone going, I see you. Well done. Good job. Whether that's feedback from customers, from your manager, for your team, or you can measure it in some other way. Will you be recognized? Because if we're not being recognized, how do we know if we're succeeding? Confidence in your company's future. Do you want to be working for an organization that's losing people, hiring process, whatever it may be? Do you want to be working there? You want to believe that the company is positive, whether it's the ESG goals, whether it's inclusion, diversity, whether it's products. You want to feel that you're working for a decent company, not a shark. Yeah. And then lastly, in my work, I'm always challenged to grow. Your company encourages you to develop and become better you, whether that's promotion, whether that's success, or whatever it may be. And they encourage you to leave and grow outside of the organization if necessary, or transfer teams. You're not held back. Okay. So there's the 8 tests. Where are you on that list? Are you mostly a 5, mostly a 10, mostly a 1? Where do you see yourself? Because let me put that back to this. So the odd numbers are the best of we. That's the organization. That's the company. We can't, as an individual, necessarily change that. So that's the environment. And the best of me is how you motivate me. And then the killer question is number 4. I have a chance to use my strengths at work. If I'm not using my strengths at work, how am I going to succeed? And we can map those onto those hygienes. Right at the beginning, we talked about that. Herzberg's 2-factor theory. If I am not getting the best of the environment, the organization sucks, the organization is toxic, the environment, my colleagues don't have my back, I'm being bullied, I'm being harassed, I'm not being included, not being thought about. How much you motivate me, it doesn't matter. Those are detractors. The hygiene level will detract me every time. So the motivators are the best of me. That's what makes me tick. That makes me feel great. But I have to have the basics. So again, think about where you are on that list and where do you think the company is on that list, and what can you do to change it? Okay. So 5 steps. We get to the wrap. So consider what you want to achieve and why. That why of D&I, really important. Work out where you are now. Inclusion review. If you're a leader, even if you're a leader of your own team, where are you? What does your team look like? How do they feel? Surveys, whatever it may be. You need a plan. Where you are, who you are, what's your why, where do you want to go? What's the objective? Positive people experiences, I hope. We need to communicate it. We need to talk about it. We need to share these values. We need to share our objectives. Because if we don't, we're all going off in different directions, like cats and pigeons. And we need to monitor and review. Every plan needs a review point. Go back. Are we doing it? Are we getting there? Are we still on track? Why aren't we on track? Do we need to go faster? Do we need to go slower? Do we need to change direction? We need to stop. Sunk cost fallacy. We need to stop sometimes and go, hang on a minute, this isn't working. Don't keep doing it. So these are the basic 5 steps of any project. And that inclusion, diversity, belongingness, corporate values and culture. Can think of it as a project. Ethos, logos, and pathos. This can be a logic as well. It doesn't have to be all about only people first. We have to blend those together. Okay. So start with your why. Yeah. Right at the beginning. That's the question I ask you. Start with your why. So inclusive leadership, conscious inclusion starts with us. You have the choice to change yourself. Accountability, remember accountability? You have the choice to be accountable for your actions, for the way you show up, your own emotional intelligence, your own cultural intelligence. You've got to have the drive, the self-awareness. That's on you. Do you have that? Then you can create change in yourself. And then you can be the one who creates change in others by positive people experiences. You've got it. You've been listening. Well done. Okay, there's some videos out there which I'm going to put in the downloadable PDF. You can get the links to these if you want. And so in summary, be self-aware, emotional intelligence. Be curious and learn, cultural intelligence. Mitigate your biases. You've got them. How can you mitigate them? Challenge your perspective. You don't have to be right. Why do you think something? Other people think differently. Start with I'm wrong and look for answers. Have empathy and compassion. And build trust, psychological safety. Create environments where people can thrive. Is that fair? That's all. It's easy. Yeah. Okay. Right. Personal reflection. Have you discovered your why of D&I? Have you? So I'd like you to please fill in the survey. Please tick 10s or 9s. No, seriously, tell GS UK what you think, what you want more of. I'd love to hear your feedback, and do Google me, find me on LinkedIn, and do connect. Thank you for your time. I really appreciate it. I'm Joanne Lockwood.
That's brilliant. Thank you so much, Joanne. I really appreciate your time. And yeah, thanks those tuning in. And yeah, please do leave feedback. It is really well received by the speakers. Joanne, yeah, we will forward that on to you when we receive that. But really appreciate your time today, and I will look forward to hearing from you this afternoon as well, your next session. So that's fantastic. But thank you very much. Thanks all.
Yeah, thank you. I do appreciate that. And as I say, see you later.
See you later.